First of all, I would like to thank and appreciate, and particularly he introduced me. My background is the economy and the politics. Therefore, maybe it's too difficult for me to say regarding of the culture. At least the ambassador must know many things. And furthermore, my speech more or less different with Excellency Rodriguez Kaiser-Wetter or the another aspects of the matters. And I would like to thank Madam Mari to be present here. It's my honor to acquaint with you. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to be among you distinguished authorities, diplomats, experts, and scholars of share some of my thoughts and to discuss the situation of our world today from cultural point of view, which I do believe is what it exactly needs and unfortunately lacks. I would like to warmly thank Dr. Marks Donfried for his brilliant initiative and, of course, organizing this event. Ladies and gentlemen, we are marking the 70th anniversary of the end of last World War and establishment of United Nations, which the human society is still facing big challenges and struggling to establish peaceful international community in which all members can live in justice, security, prosperity, and comfort. It is an unfortunate and bitter reality that in spite of its magnificent progress, humanity has suffered massively over the past few decades from discrimination and violence. Survivors are still among us who can testify to the vast destruction caused by the two world wars and, of course, many humanitarian catastrophes in the following decades caused by local and regional conflict and wars, which have happened in spite of the birth of the United Nations. As the most important positive achievement for mankind on the globe level, these tragic incidents indicate very clearly that true peace based on justice and fairness still remain a scarcity. In fact, by considering the total number of local, regional, and international wars and conflict during the last 2 decades, one may argue that in spite of establishment of United Nations and all other regulatory international organizations, and also devoted efforts for peace and security, there is an absolute increase of violence and extremism in different parts of the world, from North Africa to East Asia, from East Europe and Ukraine to the Middle East, and particularly to the Middle East. The main question is, why our international community, with all its international legal and security setting and frameworks, has not been successful to make our world more secure and stable? Main question. There might be different answers to this very basic and fundamental question, but I personally think we have to go beyond just scratching the surface to deeper layers of our international system. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we need to develop a cultural vision to truly understand why the language of force, coercion, and violence is dominated and common logic of today's world politics. For many decades, mainstream theorists of international relations advocating power politics. I reiterated to power politics, have merely focused on a state as the only agent and player of the world system and merely ignore the role of people and individuals in shaping the identity and behavior of status. More important, by explaining the world politics and its development based on the concepts such as power, security, dominance, etc. These have downgraded the vital role of concepts such as the culture in regulating the relations among nations. Learning from the experience of the past few decades, I believe what is essential for the international community is a new paradigm, or at least a paradigm shift that would promote an international environment through tolerance and which would aim to determine two parameters of a world in which peace and prosperity have a better chance than conflict. Hatred and poverty, a world in which a greater number of the inhabitants of our globe could enjoy life in peace, security, and prosperity. Accepting and recognizing cultural pluralism and respecting coexistence of different cultures and ideas on the local, regional, and international levels are key to this paradigm, a paradigm which can be a base for inclusive dialogue among cultures and religions. Such a paradigm will serve a platform that will enable us first to dismantle the illogic of extremists who use divergent ideologies to justify their terrorist and brutal crimes. And second, to reduce our vulnerability to the plague of war and violence and provide fresh approach to meet the challenges ahead. It was exactly based on this understanding that Iran has put forward two important cultural centers proposals in the last 15 years. The first was the proposal of ex-President Khatami of dialogue among civilizations, which was widely accepted by the international community, and that United Nations adopted a resolution with the same name in the year 2000. And the second, President Rouhani's initiative for war against violence and extremism, which again was welcomed by the United Nations, and in fact, on December 18, 2013, the United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly voted to approve Iran's proposal, which called on all nations across the globe to denounce violence and extremism and use all their means collectively to combat it. The current situation in the Middle East provides the best case study to understand why we need such a new paradigm. Ladies and gentlemen, Middle East is now experiencing the darkest days of its history. It is a better reality that the Middle East suffers from the absence of an acceptable organizing principle, which has caused a deep moral confusion and anarchy. In fact, what we are witnessing with horror is the daily employ of cases of blatant use of force and violence and the multiple war crimes in many countries, from Yemen to Syria, Iraq, Libya, and some other neighbor countries. Given this volatile situation in the Middle East and its potential to easily spill over to other parts of the world, I think we have to address the root cause of current catastrophe collectively. And exactly based on the aforementioned cultural central paradigm. Because of more than half century and non-stop and daily violence in the occupied Palestines, US wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and continued use of naked power against the people of the region, the culture of war has become common and dominant. Besides this half-a-century background of violence, in the last few years, the region has also undergone drastic changes, mainly as the result of Arab Spring and uncompleted power transitions in many major countries of the region. These unsuccessful attempts to build local domestic societies on one hand, on the other hand, strategic mistake and failures by few regional and trans-regional powers have resulted to weak or failed states, which themselves have provided the best environment for creation and development of terrorist and extremist groups such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. I'm sure all of you know the difficulty for the ISIS, not only for our region, but for the international community. Nowadays, I'm sure you heard about some of the persons from the European people, from Germany, from France, joined to the Al-Qaeda or ISIS. Distinguished participants, I am talking as an ambassador of a country which is the land of Persian civilization and also the crossroad of various cultures come from Iran. I'm trying to small. Iran, despite of some bitter experience in its contemporary history, has never stopped believing in dialogue and interaction, which have been always translated in its foreign policy doctrine. Iran, knowing the imminent threat imposed by the current undergoing conflict, terrorism, and extremism in the region for the world peace and security, and also through awareness of its special position, is deeply committed its responsibility in shaping not only a better region, but also better world. Iran believes that in the current situation, only organizing principle provides proper answer is the principle of justice and fairness among nations and states, which only can be achieved through meaningful and inclusive dialogue and interaction. The principle, which is the core concept of Iran's proposal of the war against violence and extremism, as well as the President Iran proposed. Iran believes in order to confront the illogic and ideologies which encourages clash between religious and cultures, we have to contemplate peaceful, regional, and global cohabitation and coexistence, and hence, through commitment to lasting peace, does not consider itself as a threat to any other countries. This is the absolute decision of Iran that it would never start an aggression against even those who forces their existence in enmity with others. In fact, Iran has never invaded any other country during the recent centuries and has this will to never fire the first shot in the future, in spite of many pressure against of Iran. Along these lines, Iran believes that the time for using force and military power has passed, and thus it proposes the establishment of serious talk, which should be also inclusive to resolve international and regional issues, which Iran is committed to do. I'm personally hopeful that with comprehension of the lack of potential power politics in its traditional sense, collective efforts to end the blind use of physical force along the formation of a new world based on accepting cultural and religious pluralism, justice, and dialogue are boosted. I believe that the only remaining option on the table is serious negotiation among all of us. I would like to reiterate, nowadays look at the reality of the Middle East. And then now the Middle East necessary to more attention and they look at the many adventure over it. Before we face with some difficulty of our neighbor countries, Afghanistan, nowadays, after the Syria, Libya, Iraq now face many difficulties. And nowadays, the Yemen is increasing how to control of this region. This region is not only for that region. Nowadays, all of the international community understand this meaning. And maybe all of them suffer from this terrorism and the violence in that area. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, radicalism nowadays and extremism, both of them, would just create further radicalism. And the war will never bring durable peace. At the end, I would like to conclude my remarks by a quote from the great poet of Iran, Maulana Rumi, who is famous because of these pluralistic views. Christian, Jews, Muslim, Zoroastrian, stone, ground, mountain, river. Each has a secret way of being with the mystery, unique and not to be judged. Thank you very much.